it really does, hit the fan. I think it's just happening with the rail at the moment, is that turn the power off and they turn your water off and they turn your access off. And without that, the world is, the world's gone. Where are you? One thing I've learned from being out here on the farm is that when you turn the world off, because we do often, just to go for a walk around the farm, nothing happens. What's going to happen? The job is just working for somebody else that wants to extract as much out of you as possible. Just a time thief. The end goal is this self-sufficiency, this I call it wealthness, wellness of mind and wealth. It's a combination of both. You've got to have something bigger and better than you. I mean, one of the things that I do here is plant native trees, that's what I'm thinking. I want to put good back into the world.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ways to Wealth. Today I am joined by Paul Tranter. Paul, why don't you give us the too long didn't read on who you are and what you work on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it's good to be here. Originally from England, Birmingham. You can tell by the accent. Been away for many years and still not got rid of the accent, but that's all pretty cool. And I've led a pretty awesome, interesting life. Trained as a graphic designer, went to art college, then grew into advertising, got a HND in advertising and design and marketing. And that was in Cornwall Polytechnic. Absolutely fantastic couple of years of my life down there. And then it was time to go and be a grown-up and get a job. So all of the agencies at the time, all the advertising agencies, the big agencies, were all in London. So we kind of went from this beautiful, real south of Cornwall up to the smog, and it wasn't good. I didn't enjoy it. It was in the rat race, and it was hard. I was living in a broom cupboard with a friend, and then we kind of bounced from one squat and then to another place in London, and it was awful. And I think I tried that for about 6 months, and it was one of those things, and it's something that I've learned in life, when things are against you, there's a reason for it. And I'll kind of maybe go into that story later on and say that's sort of one of the things that I look at in life now. Everything was going wrong. Nothing went right. The things that should be going right didn't go right. And then I saw this, I thought it was a friend of mine. It was the friend I was living with. And she showed me this advert in the newspaper, and I never forget what it said. It said, how would you like to earn £700 a week living on a tropical island? And I thought, well, that sounds good. So we went along to this seminar. And it turned out to be, timeshare. And
yeah, right.
But yeah, that was back in the 80s. But yeah, it got me out of London. I kind of jumped on the next plane out there, got a haircut because I had great long hair, and off we went. And that was, probably 19. So we spent a couple of years in the Canaries, and you're in Canaries, you're in Lanzarote. What we didn't know at the time is that it was, a lot of that timeshare stuff was to do with money laundering. It was kind of a big money laundering. There was John Palmer from the Brinks Mat robbery. He was laundering all his stuff over there, and it was pretty crazy.
Interesting.
And then it got to a stage where a lot of it got closed down. The authorities were finding out what it was, and the newspapers and everybody found out what it was. We as kids found out what it was, and so I kind of decided then that's not really where we want to be. But we learned a lot. We did learn a lot of money. I was kind of the manager at the time. People around these timeshare resorts, and it was okay. But the timeshare's timeshare, and you move on. And I think the next stage was to move to, where did I move to then? Corfu. I can't remember why, but it just seemed like a good pin in the map at the time. And whilst there, I'd kind of got this little flat next to the marina, and each day I'd look out at the boats and just fell in love with yachts, just fell in love with sailing around. Right. I started working on the boats and eventually bought a little yacht of my own that we chartered out.
Yeah.
Spent so many good years in Greece, the Mediterranean, and essentially all over the world. I was kind of I mean, it was a great job when you were young, not for when you're a family, but you're quite kind of, your job is to have a good time and to show everybody a good time and know where all the good places were. It was amazing. And we did that I did that for years. And one of the next kind of big step in my life, we changed. Where were we going? I think we were on our way from somewhere to somewhere.
Yeah.
And I ended up in the UK for sort of a few months. And that's where I've met my now wife. And we kind of hit it off and eventually settled down. Started a family. But during that time, we're going back to sort of 99, 2000. Obviously the party life wasn't really good for the family. So it was, what do I do now? So I kind of looked back and decided, what can I do? What is my skill set? And went back to design. I thought maybe we'll start some graphic design, I'll start some advertising, but things have moved on by then. When we were at college, we used to do everything by hand and pressing paper and that had kind of gone by the by as computers were coming in. So it was just when the Mac kind of just started. So I went back to college at the good old age of, I don't know, what was I, 32, 33, something like that. And then really learned the Mac. I got the very first Mac and struggled with Photoshop, with kind of word processing stuff. And that slowly, I slowly got into that. But then it was, being an agency or working for someone as a designer just wasn't in my blood. It's something that's never been in my blood. I'm totally unemployable. I can't work for people. I'm just that kind of mind, that kind of personality. And if somebody says do that, and I say why, and he says, well, I'm your boss. I don't care. So it was kind of, what do I do now? And it was kind of the age of the dawn of the internet then. So I just, by osmosis, I kind of fell into that. And the next big step was I saw, I'd kind of been researching things, researching self-publishing, researching that kind of stuff. And then I saw this, just an article on one of the event blogs, and it was about a guy that I used to see the adverts, actually. I used to see them in the Exchange and Mart. It was for this thing called government auctions, and it was government auctions in the UK, and that was kind of what this title was, and kind of had this urban myth, and it's still the same today. Government auctions, that's fantastic, we'll go and get some bargains, it's sees this, sees that, and what was happening is this guy had this directory, and literally it was a directory called Government Auctions UK, and all it was the auction house names and addresses, and he just sold it in a little book, but he sold a physical product. And this I think it was for £10, and then this article said that it sold something like 200,000 copies, and I kind of did the math and thought, he's doing all right out of this little £10 book. But he was advertising everywhere. He didn't have an online presence. So I figured, my first project is I'll just go and get these names and addresses of these auction houses that deal in government stock. I'll put it online as a little PDF. Managed to put a paywall up there, and off it went. And so the thing was, everybody that was seeing his advertising offline would go online and then find my book, because he wasn't online, he had no presence, obviously didn't know about the internet. And it didn't change the world, but it sort of took off. I was doing lots of other things at the same time, but this was always, was always a slow burn in the background. And as 1 month, you'd make sort of a couple of £100, and then a few months later, it was getting better and better until the stage it was, I kind of need to take a notice of this. It's kind of doing okay, something like £1,000 a month or something. So I kind of developed it. The next stage, version 2, was to then take that directory and just put it in a searchable database. So that was kind of the next one. And then it kept progressing and kept progressing. I kept adding more features until it became literally a searchable database of everything that was up for auction in the UK. So every kind of everything that's coming up it's in this searchable database. But it's a huge task, just because the data is disseminated everywhere. So I had a team. I built this team that that did the data input by hand, but it just became, it was so difficult. It just, to keep on top of that, the checks and balances really wasn't working. So I had a guy at the time, Dave, who used to look after the servers, and said to him, what do we do? How do we automate this? And, we kind of had a big discussion, and the idea back then was, a searchable real-time database of everything that was for auction. We moved away from the name Government Auctions UK and just called it GAWK, so GAWK, like GAWK to search, and it's history, Government Auctions UK, and then iteration after iteration, Dave kind of built some good search engines, but it's a really difficult task. And then a couple of years on, we made some progress, and then I had a message in Slack, and he said, the doo-doo's hit the fan. I said, why is that? He said, I've got stage 4 cancer. So poor old Dave went by the wayside, and kind of then was around about the time, I don't know whether we just moved to New Zealand, which is where we are now, or it was kind of around the cusp then, so kind of Dave's passed on. I think that actually, no, he's still around for a few years, but so when Dave moved on, things for me were kind of, there was no, the government auctions thing, because it was so difficult, kind of went by the wayside, and we moved to New Zealand. We had to go through immigration. We had to take on a web agency because immigration wanted you to do something that was going to employ somebody. So to get, it was a really hard process to get that. So we kind of got distracted. Did lots of other things. Property did quite well. We talked about property earlier before we came on, and that was kind of one of the things we did with a few subdivisions and stuff.
Oh, you did a few subdivisions in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, well especially back then, it would have been even easier. It would have been easier to execute, I guess, in some ways.
Well, we had the best subdivision you could ever wish for. I mean, lots of people were doing subdivisions, and they were really, they very rarely make any money. But we were quite lucky because we bought this place in Ruby Bay, and 40 acres, and it was an ex-apple orchard, but they had on the far side 3 apple orchard workers' cottages. I mean, they were literally sheds, total sheds. And essentially all we had to do was slip them off, and we added a 4th section further along. We had a great, because everything was built, everything was there. All we were doing was subdividing these existing
into their own title.
Yeah, we just gave them titles. And we did really well out of that. We kind of like the crazy things like the council always want their 10 cents worth, don't they? They had to put you need to upgrade the road that we haven't got right to upgrade it. But we did well. We kind of did well, paid the mortgage off.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, right? Because then you get to play the game almost for free.
Well, so that was kind of, and all through all of this process, all this kind of life's journey, you're still kind of trying to figure it out and trying to figure out what we're here for, what the end game is, what the goal is. So we got to that stage where all of a sudden we've the mortgage is paid off, we've got some cash in the bank. Is this what people are kind of aiming for? Is this what we're striving for? Mortgage free, and be able to do what you want to do as a next step. I think we spoke earlier, and you said that you'd kind of been in a similar situation. You'd sold something and had some money put aside. Gave you kind of the freedom to do what you want. That was good. Subdivision was good. But where we from there, we then decided what we were going to do next, and back then was kind of around the time when. I mean, it's been going on for years, the craziness in the world, but it's escalated and escalated, the kind of, I saw a really good headline, the world's on fire at the moment, and it's just been a slow burn. It's just been something that's been, boiling over time. So, I'm kind of thinking, what do we do next? And with the wife and I spoke about it, we want this self-sufficiency. We want to have this buffer. We want to be protected. We want to be protected, but we don't want to be isolated. There's all this balances. So we spent probably 4 years looking for the ideal piece of land over here.
Right.
And just finding the right spot, finding the right farm, it's going to be big enough, but it's not going to be too big to be unwieldy, but, we need to be able to manage it. And 4 years, I think we spent, and there were so many things. We've gone back to that, but that thing that I said earlier about, when things are going wrong, there's kind of a reason for it.
Right.
I'll tell you the story behind that in a second, but, we kind of realised, well, we just ended up this place here, which is a farm it's not isolated. It's the top of the south. It's kind of in. It's got 1 foot in. It's got 1 foot out. But with 150 acres, it gives us enough land to have the animals, to have the feed, to have the self-sufficiency. Not like a crazy prepper where we're digging doomsday bunkers and things, but if it really when we I think we've been here 4 years now, and around about the time that the Ukraine-Russia conflicts had started. And I love motorbikes. I was kind of, I'm always out on my motorbike, and we kind of bought this, and the idea was because we'd done well out the subdivisions, we paid for the farm in cash, and we had some. Yeah. The idea was then to get ourselves because we bought the house, we bought the land, we bought the farm, and the house was just a small workers' cottage. Right. The idea was the extra bit of cash, we'll build us,
renovate,
get ourselves
build,
and do the keeping up with the Joneses thing, but I'm still trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah.
And I'm on this bike ride and watched what was going on in Ukraine, and suddenly realised that, it seems to be that if it really does, hit the fan. I think it's just happening with Iran at the moment, is that the protesters, the government are the protesters, so you turn the power off and they turn your water off and they turn your access off. And without that, the world is, the world's gone. Where are you? And I'm on the bike thinking that through and thinking, one thing I've learned from being out here on the farm is that when you turn the world off, because we do often, just to go for a walk around the farm, nothing happens. What's going to happen? Nothing.
Yeah.
Happens. The world.
Well, I think there's this illusion, isn't there, that all of a sudden the world's changed, but it's just that we have more access to the noise. Yeah. In many regards.
The Romans were out killing people, the Mongols were out killing people. It's something, humans are essentially nasty people. There's always a megalomaniac that wants what you've got. It's never enough, is it? But you turn the world off, and you can turn the world off. But if you've got to the stage, and this was kind of where I really, the last 2 or 3 years, realised that what we have achieved just through fate, just through... let me talk about these things not going wrong. I call it the black crow. I've got this black crow that I say is kind of what guides you. And the story's great. And it was when I was with the wife back in the UK, and I think it was one of our first houses we were looking for. We'd found this place, and it seemed on the surface a really awesome buy. It was in the New Forest. The guy had gone bankrupt, so I was dealing with the liquidators, and it was the perfect property in the New Forest, and it was going to be cheap because it was bankrupt. It was a receivership. But everything kept going wrong. Things that shouldn't go wrong kept going wrong, and it's this. We've all got, we all say, why is this going wrong? Why this shouldn't happen? It should work through its natural steps, but something supernatural, something otherworldly is just
stopping
here. You come on, it just putting you off. And we're trying to buy this place, a good few months, and everything kept going wrong. And I said to the wife one day, look, let's just go and take one more look. If it doesn't work out, we won't bother buying it. We'll just see what happens. So we drove along. It was down a little country lane, and we pulled up outside this place. And as we pulled up, this little old lady, the field opposite, just to the left of the car, this little old lady, just wizened old lady, walked up to the fence, and she went, "Hello, how are you doing?" I said, "Oh, all right, how are you?" She said, "I just wanted to check you out. I could see you looking at the place, but, I just want to make sure that if I don't like you, that, then I'm going to build a toilet block right in front of you." And as she said that, this big black crow floated down, sat on the post right next to her and started screaming at us. I don't know what to do. We kind of looked at each other and said, "Fuck this, we're off." We went and got the hell out of there. And Anyway, sort of got on a few months later. I thought I'd just go back and have a look and see what happened to that place, because we'd already bought somewhere else, but, I'd just go and have a look. What had happened is a lawyer, so we had the New Forest, and then you had the house between the lawyer and the New Forest. And what he'd done is owned one of those old 400-year-old bridleways, because he wanted to ride his horse to the New Forest. But the bridleway went under the kitchen window through the garage. So this lawyer had whoever bought that house, not the garage. So if it had bought it, we would have never have known that. That crow was screaming at us, don't buy it, there's another way, there's another path, and you don't know it at the time. And, I don't know, whatever you believe in, whether you believe in fate, God, Buddha, whatever it is, the crow, whatever it is, it's whatever that force is. I call it the crow just because, of my little story, but it kind of, that guidance, although you don't know at the time, you feel, you get down, it sort of brought us to where we are here. It was exactly the same thing when we bought the land here. We've gone through 4 years of just crazy stuff. Why didn't that happen? Offers weren't accepted, all that kind of stuff. And now I'm sat here, you realise why, kind of everything. I think you spoke about, was it personal sovereignty or something? You've got...
self-sovereignty.
Self-sovereignty, yeah. I mean, if we had this, this kind of bolt hole, but then this drive, this incessant greed, this megalomania that's going on, more. I kind of think that because I kind of guess that these guys haven't figured it out. They're kind of, the guys like Bezos, Musk, all of them. They've got nothing in their soul. You've got to have something bigger and better than you. I mean, one of the things that I do here is plant native trees. That's what I'm thinking. I want to put good back into the world. I'm not going to, save the world. It's something that I can't do, but I can do my bit. And you've got to have something bigger and better than you. Otherwise, you're just a bigger yacht, a bigger this. There's no goodness in the soul. And I think you only achieve that when you've built the wealth to achieve that freedom. You get a lot of these hippies and they go, oh, yeah, we don't need money, we don't need this. Well, you do. You've got money to go plant your carrots. You've got money. You can't get to this stage. But then, there is that balance. You've got to balance it with not being megalomaniac, more. Because that's actually naturally not what we need, That's, you kind of... So, yeah, that's kind of where I am and still running around doing the internet stuff. Still working on government auctions, Cork auctions, and, that's...
So you're still doing so you've got a portfolio of online websites.
I've always stayed online. I studied wealth when I went through that stage. That time back when I'd first met, I was thinking, what do I do? I studied. One of the things that I did do, and people thought I was crazy, is I spent every waking hour listening to not crazy tapes, but listening to tapes, listening to strategies. I just every waking hour. I was working in one of the barnyards, and I'd drive, listening to the guys teaching you what businesses work, what businesses don't work. And then
that's what I did when I was in the goldsmithing. It's not much on the It's not much in the brain, but you're not. It's repetitive and it's physical labor, right?
Yeah.
Like driving, and same thing. I just listen to tons of podcasts.
You've got to immerse yourself in this, because they do know. But what I kind of fell into, what I learned is that you've got. The first thing is, we all know this, a job is just working for somebody else that wants to extract as much out of you as possible. The problem with a job is, it's just a time thief, and, you never have enough hours to it. The end goal is this self-sufficiency, this I call it wealthness, but wellness of mind and wealth. It's a combination of both. A lot more to it, I think, because all of this process, you've got your own self-discovery as well, which can take you to dark places, especially as an entrepreneur, where it's lonely, all this stuff's going on. It's hard, it's really hard. But going back to what I feel is the way forward, is, the internet is the... So a job's not going to do it for you. Job's not going to work. So then you kind of explore other avenues. What are you going to sell? And then you kind of find great products. And The problem with products are it's everything that goes with a product. The infrastructure that just goes with sourcing a product or manufacturing a product. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this. I'm saying that for me, it didn't fit into the lifestyle that I wanted to achieve, because it's, again, I think one of the tapes was really good. He talked about televisions, and if you're selling a physical product, televisions are a perfect example. They just get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper because somebody makes one. It's a great product, and it's going to undercuts him, and he undercuts it. One of the good things, one of the crazy things, because you and I both live in, I don't know if you've seen this in New Zealand, is one of the things they tend to do over here is one guy will open a shop, he'll do well, and everybody in New Zealand, because there's some little opportunity, will see him doing well, and run the same shop next door. They're like an Asian takeaway, and the next Asian comes along and owns an Asian takeaway next door, and it just, so you're constantly undercutting each other. So a television has a value. You know exactly what the value of that television is, so you know whether you're getting a good deal, whether you're not getting a good deal. But then the example that I kind of read that was that solidified all of this was, if I could give you next week's winning lottery numbers, what value of that be? There's no value to it. It could be millions. It's information. So that's where I got into kind of self-publishing, is that if you can, and not only self-publishing, but digital products. So I think we're both on the same boat there. We're both running SaaS products. We're both running digital products, because they're infinitely scalable. I mean, I can scale one of my products sat here from the office. It's on my own. If we need staff, then we just replicate that staff's job with, well, it's going to be AI these days, but it used to be just a programmer. So the internet and digital products are kind of my thing, and so I'm kind of constantly looking for that. But then my weakness is that I'm a marketer rather than a developer. So
yeah, right, yeah.
But the marketing I do really well. I kind of nailed that. I think we spoke earlier about content creation and how you sell those digital products. So once you kind of it's whatever fits, really. I think is that whatever fits your life. If it's people do brilliantly selling Tetra Pak or paper clips or whatever it is, but it is hard. But then I think the other side is the actual marketing, and that's really difficult these days, and it's changing by the minute.
Well, it's changing all the time, right? Like the whole thing. I mean, self-publishing though, and being in that game for a while, you're kind of ahead of the game. But now it's gone beyond self-publishing, right? It's like creating your own content, creating your own brand. And I agree, like with everything that's changing around technology, the cost of developing is going down. Distribution is easier than ever in terms of infrastructure to do it. But then we've all got in the habit of, I'm going to pay Facebook or Google for my eyeballs, right? And then my wife is an artist. She's in a handful of galleries, but when she was doing she was making kind of high quality designer masks during the pandemic that went off really well. Like the business hit off, and they had a very profitable way of acquiring customers through ads. And then one day Facebook's ad network and Facebook went down, and they lost 99% of their traffic, which meant they got no sales that day. And also there are interesting stats around startups that for every dollar a startup raises, 40 cents goes to either Amazon, Google or Facebook.
Yeah.
Which is obvious, right? It's like, yeah. So now self-publishing is becoming more important, right? And even when you think about technology or a product or service, now it's about how you think or the principles and frameworks that you adhere to in order to get what you want. Because technology is easy to replicate, easy to deliver now. It's not about a form that's going to create an outcome. It's about, I think personally, it's about personal brand or brand as an entity, and then the principles and frameworks you use to actually navigate this new world.
I absolutely 100% agree. And it's been really interesting for me coming in and out of the industry. So, kind of go back to when we did the subdivisions, we got concentrated on that. I had to concentrate on the web agency, and then I'd come back to Cork and think, right, I've got to get that started again.
Right.
And so if I go back, rewind to where we started, so we kind of started with this little government auctions, but one of the other things, that was really big back then was affiliate marketing. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
It was so...
Yep.
I mean, it was literally the Wild West back then. It was fantastic. You'd send out an email, so you'd find enough product. I mean, I don't know whether people know what affiliate marketing is.
Yeah, please. Just
for those that don't, it just means that a manufacturer makes a product, you're the marketer, you advertise that product, you get a commission for every product that you sell. It's as simple as that, and that's what we do. So we had our own products, our own digital products. And I thought about the content becoming the vehicle for exposure for marketing, but it was so easy. We built these large lists. We did have to think about it. We kind of built systems. The whole plan, the strategy was simple: build an email list, find a product, email that email list each week with something they want. You match that product, you turn visitors into friends in, and all of that stuff. But it was crazy. One of the things that I always remember was another little book, another self-publishing book, a little PDF. So I went. I think Fiverr had just started. Then I went on Fiverr, found somebody. I said, rewrite that. So you rewrite that, and then you fire out this little good book. It was a really good book, and then within minutes you could see the credit cards ding, 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 bong, bong, bong. They would just sell. It was.
And did you do that by running ads, or did you already build up an email list?
We built the email list, and we were quite clever in. Blow your own trumpet, Paul. Go on then. We were quite. We would do. One of the things we developed was a little app. Well, it was a system called Freenet Leads. And it was actually a pyramid scheme, a multi-level marketing scheme. I'm trying to remember. I think it was 12 levels deep, but unlimited wide. But it was for advertising. And what we would say is that if you join this system, you have to agree to accepting 3 related adverts from your downline. 12 adverts from your downline. So if it's 12 deep, the most you'd ever receive is 12 advertising messages. And you just kind of... Our software monitored whether they looked at them or not. It was kind of a click. There was too wild traffic. There was other stuff. But the beautiful thing about it is you receive the 12 adverts from the downline, but you could advertise out unlimited wide. And because we were number one at the top of the pyramid, we could advertise to everybody. So we had these huge email lists. So you build your email lists. But then going back to going through that process to where we are today, we would then continue to build it. It was always building an email list because with the spammers really weren't into gear then, and the delivery rates were great, the response rates were good. The noise now is incredible. You just it's so difficult. But we'd build the email list, and what I would do generally is build a series of landing pages, quite a lot of landing pages. They're called doorway pages, so I'd have lots and lots of URLs with a really good landing page on each, and just collected email addresses. That's all we would do. I used to be really good at SEO. Well, we didn't need to be good. It was just simple, wasn't it? You'd play with the meta tags and say, and you'd be number one on Google. But then, the spammers found that if you were clever about it, you could be number one for financial services, but you'd click on it and there'd be a blue pill or something, So that's kind of where you get messy. And that's when this war started between Google and the spammers. Google always trying to stay one step ahead, but the spammers were always one step ahead of Google, so they were fighting this war. And the thing with Google is going back, this just accelerated to this new era of AI. I really had hoped that Google would sort this out with AI, if they'd be able to sort out the good sites from the bad, but they've just given up and said, right, let's just steal the entire knowledge of the world, put it in AI overview, so they don't send traffic anywhere anymore. So I don't know where all of this is going right now, but that lateral thinking with building the lists, when I came back a couple of years ago to relaunch some of these digital products, I thought it would be that, and it's not. and the whole landscape has completely changed. And going back to what
Yeah, the monetization has definitely changed, right?
And I'm also in a lot of I deal with a lot of startups and speak to a lot of people and see that the strategy these days is exactly what you said earlier, that, right, we'll go and we'll pitch this crazy product, we'll get some venture capital and we'll launch it. But what they don't realise is that they're going to launch it, but they're going to launch it on Facebook, on Meta, on these other platforms, and it is going to cost literally all the budget. Facebook ads do not work without data and without, you've got to pay for the data before they work, before you really get. So you've got this huge burn rate, this huge run. But I spend a lot of time kind of figuring that out and going down the rabbit hole, getting depressed, getting dark, it's not working, the whole world's falling to pieces. And in the meantime, I'd met another developer that was going to start working again on our search engine, on the auction search engine. So we co-founded that. He's still working on that. But I said, right, that's going to free me up to get back to just launching, just getting some kind of traction again, but using this lateral thinking. And I again went back down that, listened to everybody, go on YouTube. Gary Vee is one of the guys I was listening to. And these days, it's literally boils down to the content. And this is going back to content creation. And I started probably 6 or 8 months ago just doing that, just concentrating on content, just concentrating on good. Because people want to consume. They always have done. There's nothing new in what we're doing these days. It's back then when give people something they're interested in. The thing, and New Zealand is really, really, really bad at this. It's you wouldn't walk up, you wouldn't open a shop and see the passenger, see the foot traffic, run out of your shop and start bashing them over the head saying, buy this, get in my shop. They seem to think that if you go and put an advert on YouTube, you listen to it, it's screaming, it's a happy voice, it's shouting. Meta, and trying to be seen as really, I hate it. Every day you're just flicking through adverts and you've got this shout, whereas what people have forgotten is that if you give something that people want, they'll become your friend, and you keep giving them something that they want, they can become great friends, and they're going to buy from you. But they're not going to buy from you. I think the metrics today are, you need something like 17 touch points before people will buy. Where in the early days of affiliate marketing, you'd send an email out, it'd be the first or second touch point, and you'd make a sale. But these days, it's a journey, and it's through content. And what's happened these days as well, it's not about followers anymore. People used to think, and this is kind of where Zuckerberg made his money. People would spend a fortune building their Facebook page to have
loads of followers.
Hundreds of thousands of followers will cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then Zuckerberg would throttle back the exposure. So if you went to go and advertise to your followers that you've paid to build, he would he'd throttle that back. He'd say, hang on a minute, there's a little affiliate link there. We're not going to do that because we want your advertising dollar. So you wouldn't. But now followers have gone, and I've studied that recently. You can really see how the environment's changed by looking at some of these Facebook. Supercar Blondie is a really good one for supercars, because at the moment, I'm looking at car auctions rather than the big picture of auctions. So I kind of study this stuff. And if you look at Supercar Blondie, she's got something like 6.5 million followers that she's built up over the years. Right. But then look at the engagement on her posts. Her posts are pretty dull and boring. She's lucky if she gets 300 likes. And it's the same if you go on LinkedIn. Look at Harvard University. They've got 3.5 million followers on LinkedIn, which you would think would be an amazing demographic to have. Yeah. Their posts are dull and boring. There's literally no engagement. And what's happened is the algorithm now has, from at this time of talking, is that it's starting to reward just the content. So if you're creating really good content within your niche, you become an authority in that. That's what they reward. So I've experimented over the last at this moment as we speak, I'm getting around about 2 to 3 million views a week on my content. And all I'm doing is literally putting up stuff that I think people will find interesting. Hopefully they'll read that. Then hopefully they'll see the link in the comments. You can't very rarely put your link to your product in the post because the algorithm says that's a promotional post. But going back to content, literal content, you become an authority. And you don't have to be on the main platforms. I'm across 17 social media platforms. So the things that are doing really well for me are Reddit. They are Quora, threads, things, that you don't really get of. But the way I've kind of done well out of those, just by absolute experiment all the time, Reddit's doing really well, but I was getting banned on all sorts of Reddits. I was getting banned. I was getting a cane, because you go on a Reddit, and the only reason what the Reddit wants from you is your contribution. But why would you contribute if you're getting nothing out of it? So I'd contribute for a little week or two, and then they'll go, "Right, I've contributed. Now come and buy some shit off me, some stuff off me." They ban you. So
no promotional,
right?
No promotional stuff.
Yeah, so the way it's working out for me now is I become the authority, so I set up my own subreddit. I figure that, I want to be the police, I don't want to be policed. And and then you become the authority. And that will work for any business. It will work for your mom and pop store down the road, providing they're and it's quite easy to come up with AI these days. It's quite easy to come up with the ideas. You just say to AI, give me 20 ideas for the week for great products in this niche or in this marketplace, and it will just, it's really, really good at research. It's really bad at actually writing stuff unless you train it or use the right model. But I think, for me, AI has been a really, it's been a blessing in disguise. I mean, it's terrible in one respect that it's taken, everybody focuses on what it's taken away, jobs, living, it's taken away, the traffic, the website traffic that we used to have. But then, that's actually making you work harder. I use AI all the time, but, it's not a case of just being lazy. I mean, you look at the content these days, every single thing that you read is just, it's boilerplate AI, which we shouldn't do,
which doesn't work. But also AI does help, does triage good content, and that's the next layer of maybe SEO. Is obviously a lot of people are now starting to talk about, do LLMs reference you? Is the next stage. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a really interesting space, and I think what we've all starting to learn is that if you're utilizing a distribution channel, you are by nature policed, and you could be deplatformed at any moment. That's really the pet play, right? So in terms of kind of what you're doing now and what the next couple of years looks like what do you think, what in your mind is success for you in the next 5 years, given that you're now starting to see this traction with the you're getting the distribution of eyeballs? Is there an ideal state that you are wanting to get to? Is there, what does success look like for you in the next 5 years?
I know that's a brilliant question, and that's that question that I've been toying with for years. And I watched some. I think it was Judi Dench. I think Judi Dench on Graham Norton, and he asked her the same question. It was still winning an Oscar, and she was saying it was, it's really interesting. Success. What defines success? And she said, for me, the drive for success was to win the Oscar. I won the Oscar, had a fantastic night, got home, and then went, what now? And success is that. It's this, I don't know. I still don't know what the next 5 years for me, how that looks is the search, because we're still working on the search engine. So, I kind of just because it's my baby, I want that just to, I don't need it to be massively successful. I just want it to work. So at the moment we're building this new model. It's called Motors. So it's literally a search engine for every car that's up for sale at the moment. And it is it is a level playing field. It's not going to carry ads. It's not pandering to the corporates and the people with the dollar that skew the results. It's just literally, a search platform that's curated by humans, which is good. We've got the Motorbuzz News, which is where the content's coming from. That's blowing up at the moment. That's really going well. The key then is to kind of monetize that. So I'm being very careful, treating very carefully at the moment. So we're just slowly turning on the monetization for Patreon and Substack. So I did that yesterday. So hopefully we can start to see things work out. But I want to go, for me, the passive income is success. That passive income that gives you the freedom to do what you want to do. And what I want to do is, I want to go back and do a bit more traveling again to Europe. And I'm really just crazy on the ancients and Graham Hancock, the pyramids, those crazy. I kind of still really interested in that. But then I also want to get the plant, I've got some big native planting projects going at the moment. So it's, if you tie everything together, the product that we spoke about, the digital product that gives you that freedom to do that, because the mechanism's doing that. So you've got your freedom, you've got your a few hours a week, or you take an agency on once you get to that stage, do your marketing, do your content marketing, but you've learned what people want. So that passive income is just flowing nicely. It doesn't have to be bazillions. It just has to be enough to it's not, it's, your passive income isn't the success. The success is the freedom that it gives you to do the things that you want to do. And none of us want to work. None of us want to sit in an office. None of us want to do that. We've all got things that we want to do, whether it's saving the kids or helping the homeless or whatever it is. You cannot do that without that passive income. So, that's really just success is having the things that I've been working on, but then just keeping, just enjoying life. I think it's like being in the now. There's a place down in the farm down here that I call the Hollow, and it's just a magical place. It's in the middle of the native bush. Stream runs through it, and it kind of runs and does almost an oxbow loop. So it kind of does this thing, and you sit in the island, and you've got the manuka, you've got the tree ferns, you can just sit there, and there's something about that place, and you just go, just think and be. And I think that's kind of what, if I could wave a magic wand, that's kind of what I'd say to everybody, is just be less of this craziness. You don't need all this stuff. You just need enough, which is where you need to put the hard work in the first place. There's a balance with everything, isn't there? There's a balance, but yeah.
And what do you find? Like, what do you find some of your personal barriers to that? Like, what do you think holds you back from those things? Is there any? Yeah, like what are some of the challenges?
Yeah, my barrier, I can name it in instantly. It's developers.
Right.
As far as I love your developers, but crikey, once the problem with developers is, it's your life is in their hands, and if they, and this is what's happened to me over and over and over again. You take a developer on that promises you the world, and they're paid an hourly rate, and they get to 90% there, and it's a bit too hard, really. I don't know how this works, and I'm going to go on to another project. My last co-founder did the same. He came on. Yep. I think he secretly thought that he'd get this thing built out in 6 months, and then he'd just want to sit back and let me do the marketing, and he could reap the rewards. But the sooner I get this act together and build what I want. But at the moment, it's really difficult, because you need the developer to generate this passive income, because we need the app. But then, they're expensive, $50, $100 an hour. You've got to find that money up front. You've got your runway. So, yeah, that's really that's been like the only hurdle. I'm getting over other things, but development and developers and development.
And doing it right? Like, because there's and what engineers just typically miss is the business problem versus the technical problem, and marrying it so it doesn't have to be refactored. That's often the problem with projects, is that you get halfway built, or you even build it and it starts to scale, and you realise you have to rebuild it.
Yeah,
and that's where so many people get caught up, and that's a mixture of kind of project managers and business operators doing specs in a way where the engineer doesn't necessarily get it, or the engineer makes technical decisions that actually impair business operations. And it's this constant battle. And coming from a business background and then retraining and basically training myself into programming and become, and getting those technical skills is a bit of a game changer. Now we're seeing obviously a contraction of the cost of development, but you'd rather actually pay more if you can guarantee that you get the outcome that you desired. And that's the whole kind of cone of uncertainty thing, right? Where when you start something out, it's really exciting and you've got your eyes open and you're wide, but the uncertainty, the cone of uncertainty is huge. And as you go through and you solve problems, the cone of uncertainty comes down and you kind of get, that's where you get your end state. So that's really interesting. I think a lot of people struggle with that issue, right? But then again, I think what's really interesting is how you've found a way to identify niches and then talked about creating content around that. So what do you think is if someone wanted to had some passions, right, and they actually wanted to engage in creating content that was valuable, what do you think is at the moment the most overlooked platform that someone could start on today?
Yeah, it kind of depends on what it is, what the product is. So different platforms have different audiences. So for me, I'm trying to be, we deliver motoring news at the moment. So we're kind of, we're looking for a more mature audience. LinkedIn is kind of our audience, but LinkedIn is really hard to get traction on. Just the engagement, no matter what you deliver, is really difficult. And Reddit, create your own Reddit, but become an authority on that Reddit. Post every day, because every day, every post, at the moment, it is, as I said, all about content. Whatever that one single piece of content. So if you look at my Reddit each morning, which I do, and there's no second guessing it. This is why you just have to become almost immune to the reaction when you see a post that only does 300 views. Don't get down. It's just emotional. This is a military operation. So each morning, the posts that I do for Reddit, let's just take Reddit, isolate Reddit. So the posts that I do for Reddit, quite often I think, bloody hell, that's a good story. That's a great story. I'll put it up. I'll get 500 views. The ones you don't think, I had one the other day blow up. It did 400,000 views in 2 days. It's the first 48 hours. And every day, 1 or 2 blow up. Every day, 3 or 4 don't. And what happens is that it's a long-term strategy. I really got really down and depressed going back when I first started on this journey, because the conventional theory is that you have to analyse your statistics, analyse what's working. If it's not, stuff wasn't working, and I was just getting, oh my God, everything's going to fall apart. I'm going to die destitute like Tesla. It's all going to fall apart. But I just kept at it, and I just kept at it, and I just kept posting things. One of the things that works really well across all platforms at the moment are old photos of celebrities with their cars. So Paul Newman sat on an Alfa Romeo. I'll put that on Threads. I can get 50,000 views on that. But going back to your answer, which platform, there isn't really a right or wrong. What happens is that I spread, at the moment I've only got enough time to focus on 5 or 6 platforms, but then I'm now writing apps to help me with marketing, to help me generate, I use RSS content, I use APIs, so I'm trying to develop this control panel that I can just write it once and then. But one of the things people don't want to do that I have tested, I use these other platforms like Social Bee, those ones that just spit out the content. So you write it once and then it's lazy. And what happens is each platform has its own requirements. So Reddit, you've got to be really mature. You go over to Instagram, which I'm not using at the moment, but Instagram Reels, it's just the funny stuff. It's a younger audience, it's a different audience, but that might resonate with your product. There's a girl that does really well on Facebook. She's just a local, so going back to just posting the content for whatever business. She's got a bakery, so she's called Fresh Bake, I think, or something like that, over in Brightwater, and she's just on it every day. She's just doing videos of her holidays, she's doing videos of the things that she makes. There's another guy on TikTok. He's a baked potato guy. I think they call him Mr. Spud. All he does is take Instagram videos each day of him making spuds, making potatoes, in his van, and he gets millions and millions of views. He might put one up and get no views. It doesn't matter, so long as you're posting that content has to you've got to realise that content's got a 48-hour window. If it starts to kick off, then you can put your link in the comments and pin it as a comment, so they link to your product, because the algorithm sees that as a comment rather than part of your post. So everybody is coming up, and you just got to watch the things that blow up and be on it. It's a hard. I mean, I work. It's really hard. 4 hours a day on these, 5 hours a day. It's not a full-time.
Yeah.
It's, I kind of do the mornings of this and then do the building, the farm, and that in the afternoons. But if you're on it and you really do, you really create that content. Find what you have to do is kind of spread yourself really thinly, and then just keep chipping. It's the 80-20 rule. So chip off the things that don't work, or the things that you can't control, or just feel a little bit too out there. Just hone it, and you just keep honing these machines. And everybody that I spoke to when I was doing my studies said, just do this, just keep posting the best content that you can on these platforms. It will go, some will blow up, and it does. You've got to keep going and keep going. And like these YouTubers, you watch these YouTubers, oh my God, he's got 10 million views, but he didn't start with 10 million views.
No.
Same as your company. You've got to start at square one, and it's the same with content. But
that's right.
To go back to content marketing versus paid ads, I haven't ever touched paid ads because I've never made them work. They're just a money thief. They just pay for Zuckerberg to go to the moon, or what was it, things like the moon or whatever it is. Yeah. It's very. You see on Dragon's Den. Oh yeah, I turned over 3 million last year. Oh, that's fantastic. What did you spend on ads? 3 million. It's just it's crazy. But
no, that's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod. I really appreciate it. It's really cool to see. Seeing more people going out there and working out how to get distribution, and then creating. I've got this whole new thing now around dying empty. It's a new thing that I've taken on, which is that so many people die with all their ideas left inside them still. And just talking to your point around keep putting out the content and delivering day in, day out is about basically putting your ideas out into the world. Some of them, like you say, get 1 view, some of them get 1 million. But the worst thing would be leaving them in you and then basically ending up, getting old and passing on, right? And all of those really great ideas and those inspirational moments are never get to see the light of day. And that's kind of something that I've really taken on board. Yeah,
it's your legacy. But it's the same goes for life. Something I've lived by that scared the hell out of me was getting really old and crooked and sitting in front of the fire in your armchair with your grandkids all around your feet and having no stories to tell. It's the same thing. You've got to live your life. You've got to live a big life. I mean, I'm getting on a bit now, and I suddenly realised, Jesus, he is going so quickly. You've got your big life. You've got to do your right. You just got to fill your life with everything.
Yeah, you totally do. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. We'll speak again soon, I'm sure.
Good man.